Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another one of our live video chats here today. Today, we're going to be talking with Kerry Hayes, Chief of Staff for Mayor Berke. And he's going to walk us through some of the local guidance, legislation, aid that's available to businesses, that sort of stuff. And we're also joined by Justin Groenert, our VP of Public Policy. Thank you both for being here today.
Yeah,
Thanks for having
thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Well, I thank you guys so much, and everybody that's tuning in. I don't know what people do with Zoom, but I am very grateful for the chance to talk a little bit about some of the things that the city's been working on, some of the things that we're starting to anticipate in terms of how the private sector is going to be affected by the coronavirus and some of the things that we know, and then very happy to hear questions and answer questions and try to problem solve around whatever folks might want to talk about. Generally speaking, I'll find a way to share this link if either through Jeremy or somehow. If you haven't heard the program that the city, the biggest program the city has available right now to help with businesses that have been affected by the coronavirus and our executive orders is cha.city/COVID small business. And I'll find a way to make sure that gets out to everybody. I think Justin's linked to that in his public policy newsletters. That is a roughly $2.5 million fund that is being administered in part by the Chamber, for which we're very, very grateful. That is a combination of some federal dollars that were already under our control, some economic development resources that we asked the City Council to redirect, some other HUD dollars that we can repurpose, but those will take the form of both grants and loans, primarily targeting those small businesses that we are trying to keep from failing. That's where we see the most bang for our buck, so to speak, is if we can try to keep a lot of businesses intact through the hardest couple of months that we know people are facing, that we think will put us in the best position to rebound and make this the kind of recovery that we want to see our economy make. I don't need to tell anybody on this call how good things were going for Chattanooga. As recently as January and February, Forbes had said, I think we were the #1 market for jobs, job growth, I think in 2020. There was a lot of positive signals around wages and unemployment and property values, and just every positive indicator that we were looking at, that you could look at, was in our favor. And then this was just like a truck coming down the side of a mountain, and you had to slam the brakes, and catastrophe has resulted not only in Chattanooga, but in a lot of other places. So we're trying to step in with a pool of money that we all know internally is going to be outstripped by demand very, very quickly. I do think we will have a little bit more flexibility on loans. These are zero interest loans with very, very generous terms that you should absolutely avail yourselves of if you believe that you qualify. The application and a lot of other questions are going to be answered for you on that website. I'm happy to take calls. Jermaine Freeman, who's our Deputy Chief of Staff, who really led the effort on this, are happy to take calls from people if there's questions that aren't being answered by what's already out there. If you need to problem solve around other types of support that we might be able to connect you to, we're very, very happy to do that. The other half of that strategy, such as it is on our part, is to try to sort of ease the pain as best we can until real federal resources kick in. The federal government is doing a lot. It also is not enough at this point. It's not going to reach anybody quickly enough. I think that a lot of the things that they're trying to do on their stimulus grants and the checks and the payment protection plan is terrific. But that too, at the best possible speed, is not going to sort of trickle down into the hands of most people and most business owners for a couple of months. So it sounds like they're trying to learn a lot of lessons from the recession in terms of how to deploy some of those assets more rapidly. I do believe that there will be at least one more big stimulus package. I don't know what it will include. I do know that cities like ours, mid-sized cities, were excluded from being able to access some funds directly that some of our bigger counterparts, even here in Tennessee, will have access to. And so that's pretty frustrating. That frustration is shared by Senator Blackburn and Senator Alexander and Congressman Fleischman. So we're hopeful that when another package starts moving through Congress, whenever that is, there may be some resources that we as the city can access that will be extremely useful. Because as I'm sitting here in my socially distant City Hall office, I've got several binders in front of me that include our projected FY21 budget. Very much still in draft form. Justin and I were chatting about this a little bit last week. I'm not getting over my skis too far when I say that it will be a pretty flat budget compared to last year. We're having to look at some pretty unfortunate shortfalls in our own revenues. Not, so I know some cities in Tennessee are having to contemplate property tax hikes and some other things to try to fill some of those gaps. That's Chattanooga was in an extremely strong and advantageous fiscal position before all this happened. But it will be a pretty slim budget in a pretty tough time for city government as we head into the summer and into the fall, and hopefully we'll be rebounding a little bit more in the autumn months. There is, to that point, I'm sure you're seeing, there's a lot of conversation coming from the governor's office, from the Knox County mayor's office, from lots of different places about sort of this shift in some of the thought that we need to start having really intentional conversations about reopening parts of the economy. Speaking from our point of view, it's a little premature to start really thinking about what that's going to look like. I think it is responsible. I think it is absolutely our role to start trying to make some of those plans and to try to start working with industry to sort of see what that will really look like. I just have to be a little bit the guy who's always going to want to be pulling the reins on that a little bit, because the least responsible and the most dangerous thing I think any of us could do would be to try to snap back into the way things were too quickly, and loosening some of those restrictions before the data and the advice of the medical community tells us that we're ready to doesn't do anything except create the likelihood of a much worse infection spike later on in this year. And that would mean everything that we're suffering through right now would just continue. And instead of a curve, you would just sort of see a series of waves of loosening restrictions, people getting sick, having to tighten restrictions over and over and over again. And that, from a public health standpoint, is terrible. From an economic standpoint, is absolutely ludicrous. And so we're trying to sort of make sure that as we proceed, we are looking at data, we are listening to doctors, we're listening to epidemiologists, and we're really trying to sort of key in on what those triggers are that are going to tell us in Chattanooga and Hamilton County that it's safe to start letting things get back to normal a little bit. I realize this is not a conversation around science, and I won't belabor the point, but I think as of yesterday, there were something like 107 cases in Hamilton County, 11 deaths. That means the fatality rate here is like 10% or over, approaching 10%. Globally, we know coronavirus has a fatality rate of something like 1% or 1.5%. That doesn't mean that Hamilton County is more dangerous. It means that the testing that we have is just simply inadequate. And we know that there are quite a large number of people who are sick that don't know it. We have a lot of people that are carrying the disease that don't know it. And until we have a lot more confidence around who has the virus, where it's being transmitted, what we can do to contain it, how we can really target that containment strategy, it's going to be a little premature for us to really be thinking about, well, let's get back to normal and when can we get rid of these executive orders and things like that. But I just want to hear everyone on this call to hear me say, no one is eager for that to happen more than Andy Berke. As a small business owner myself, as someone who made my living for many years doing consulting for a lot of small businesses, I have an extraordinary degree of sympathy for the pain of everyone is feeling. I went through the recession, lost a job then, had to assist in laying people off. I know that is absolutely awful. What everyone that's listening to this call is feeling and going through, and the conversations you're having to have with your employees are absolutely brutal, and we're so sorry. But please know that everything that we're doing on both the mitigation side of things and the eventual recovery side of things is with an eye towards trying to make sure that we're not prolonging this, making it worse, rushing into decisions without all the data, or doing anything that would make this longer and slower and more painful than we need to. We very much want a sharp V-shaped recovery. We don't want a W. We don't want a U. We don't want an L. We just want to make sure we're doing everything we can to help people get healthy and stay healthy, and let private industry do what it needs to do. So that's kind of my initial set of remarks. I know there's some questions about essential businesses and what qualifies and what doesn't. Some of those are kind of easier for me to solve on a case-by-case basis. Generally speaking, we are looking to the state's guidance for that. They have a very exhaustive list of businesses that are deemed essential, most of which they took from the CDC. So I won't attempt to run through all of them now, but that's another resource on that small business website, or the business resources website I mentioned, where you can find the long list of business categories that are exempted under the executive order, both ours and the state's. I'm not going to pretend that all of those exemptions are necessarily coherent or that there aren't some internal maybe disagreements about where one things may seem to be in conflict with the other. Our bias will frankly always be to try to make sure a business can close. Just to be perfectly honest, as the mayor puts it, we're trying to give people as few reasons to leave their house as possible right now. But I'm like you. I see the big box retailers, the hardware stores, nurseries, liquor stores, gas stations, things that you look at and you're just thinking, why on the earth are they closing this, but they can't close that? I'll defend as many of those decisions as I can, but generally, my guidance to our team and to the mayor is that we are trying to do things that none of us ever thought we'd have to do. Trying to adapt systems that are truly not meant to have to do all this. We're going to do our best again to try to make sure that we're keeping the public's health and safety as our sort of North Star, and ask for everyone's patience and forbearance along the way as we do that. So with that, happy to listen to whatever Justin might have to say, or take questions, or whatever else I can do.
Sure. Let me interject really quick there, Kerry. So we do have the Q&A open. If you guys have questions, please feel free to type them in there, and I'll be looking at them. And we'll be taking those here in a little bit. I'll start with one of my own that I think is pretty basic. Like you mentioned, Kerry, lots of questions about what constitutes an essential business, if businesses are allowed to open, and what capacity are they allowed to operate, that sort of thing. If a business owner has questions around that, where should they go? Who should they get in contact with to ask those questions?
To discuss the terms under which a business could reopen, I'm happy to talk to that person and try to see if there's some way that we can get there. Generally speaking, it'll be at least to the end of April before we're really ready to start thinking through that in a tactical way. And I want to brace everybody that, you know, a lot of the guidance that we're hearing is that some of the changes are going to be almost permanent. And there's going to be some things that are just going to be different and feel different for a long time. Temperature checking employees, temperature checking some customers, limiting capacity. I mean, things that are just seem absolutely inconceivable as recently as a couple months ago are going to be a little bit the new normal. And I want to make sure everyone who's in a managerial position or an ownership position gets that those kind of requirements probably won't be coming from us. They'll probably be coming from the CDC, DHS, the state health department. But those are the kind of things that businesses are going to need to kind of be ready to consider from our operational standpoint before some of the restrictions that we put in place can be loosened.
Okay, Justin, why don't you run through some updates for us on the state and federal level real quick, and then we'll take some questions.
Sure. Thanks. And Kerry, great job sort of setting me up for some of my comments. We are obviously a couple weeks out of the implementation of the CARES Act. One of the things that I think we're all sort of realizing is this is a lot like moving a jumbo jet at 30,000 feet and hoping we can get it to land. The federal government, and Kerry sort of mentioned it, there are a lot of systems in place that aren't built to handle this kind of volume. Government being one of them, and here we are. On a good note, though, I think loans are starting to be approved for the PPP here locally. Generally, how it's gone is once I've heard anecdotally from several people that have had success with the program, that their loans have been approved, and roughly 10 days later, the bank should be able to get funds to them. So that is starting to move. I think that's really encouraging. The stimulus payments, the $1,200 plus $500 for kids, have started hitting bank accounts. So in the next coming week or two, if you are set up with the IRS to do a direct payment, you should keep your eye on that. That should be coming through as well. A lot of what we're following now is the federal government's negotiations on adding more money to the PPP program. They're looking to add another $251 billion to get that total fund up to $600 billion. I think everyone seems to like the terms around the program, making sure that they can become grants and be helpful. I think the speed with which some of those payments are going to come out has been obviously slower than ideal, but I think we're getting there. So it's setting the stage for, as Kerry mentioned, a broader fourth package. I think you'll see more money going to this Paycheck Protection Program. I think you'll see some more money for cities and state governments that are going to be hit with pretty big windfalls or downturns in tax revenue, amongst other things. So there's a lot of things moving. There's been some talk of some transportation funding, infrastructure funding in a longer term sort of stimulus type package as we sort of unpackage the economy slowly and get it back on edge or back rolling again. One thing to also keep in mind too, this is the first time in the history of our nation that all 50 states are under some sort of an emergency declaration, which sort of does continue to hamstring sort of the broader process. So making sure that you're being diligent in working with your financial institutions, working with your bankers, working with the city on their programs, is really important at a time like this. And I hate to say be patient, but it's really hard to kind of mobilize this kind of an effort as quickly as I think we'd all like. So again, as we can be helpful, please let us know. We're following, again, the federal and state programming and what may be coming down the pike, and we'll keep you guys apprised of that as well. So.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, thanks, Justin, so much. We do have some questions coming in now. Kerry, one question that I've seen come up here, which is pretty relevant, is there financial help for local small businesses from the city of Chattanooga? Do you want to speak a minute about the Small Business Stabilization Fund?
Sure. So that's that fund that I mentioned at the top of the chat, which is a $2.5 million fund that's comprised of a mix of local and federal dollars, primarily targeted towards mitigating the damage that we know a lot of businesses are feeling right now. Those are grants and loans that are available in tiers of I think $5,000, $10,000, and $25,000. There's an application that's online that I'm happy to share. We realize a paltry effort compared to the scale of the hardship that a lot of Chattanooga businesses are feeling. But we are well positioned to be able to start deploying those funds really quickly. Just because as the government that's closest to the people, we already have a lot of the programming and the people in place to make sure that checks can get out really quickly, which we know is good. So encourage everyone to check out that site, find out what you need to make the application. It's very simple. I just would only caution to say that that fund is oversubscribed. The demand was greater than the supply of funds that we have the minute that we put it online. So I believe if you're willing to accept a loan instead of an outright grant, we may have a little more resource available. Those are very generous loans with very generous terms that we want people to be taking advantage of. So check out that link. Give me a call. Give Jermaine Freeman, our Deputy Chief of Staff, a call. Happy to do whatever we can to at least make a determination about your qualification. That's the first step. But that's what we've been able to put into place reasonably quickly, given how slow that things sometimes take up here. We were able to try to get that online within a couple weeks of the initial executive order, and we believe it will do some good. We know that more is going to be required. We are hopeful that we will see the involvement of some private sector partners. Have not had a ton of participation from them yet, but certainly there's nothing to stop philanthropy or other corporate partners from stepping in and helping to resupply that, and we can have those conversations as well. But that's the signature program that we have available. We do also have access to, I mean, there are other grants and incentives and things that our economic development office have that they run all year long that are not coronavirus specific. So if you apply or if you call and it looks like that's the COVID fund is not a fit for whatever reason, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the conversation. There may be some other things that we can either connect you to or make available to you that could be helpful.
Okay. Another question we've had come in here. Is there understanding of CARES Act distribution to Hamilton County, Chattanooga for municipal use?
Great question, Alexa. There is none as far as Chattanooga and Hamilton County goes, unfortunately. That law was written in such a way to where the HUD dollars that they have put in there, I believe they're mostly CDBG dollars, are Memphis and Nashville have more direct access to those. They were for cities of 500,000 people or more. This was not a decision made by anyone in Tennessee. I don't exactly know what the lobbying thought was that led the law to be written that way, other than I'm sure it was a trade-off to help larger metros hopefully patch their finances a little more readily. So the short unhappy answer is that we are directly precluded from a lot of the resources that the CARES Act includes. Those will fall under the governor's discretion. We're very fortunate that we've got a terrific relationship with him and his office. He's been unbelievably responsive and helpful to us since this whole thing started. He's in town today. So we are very optimistic that when the time comes, as soon as I think his office understands what they will have the ability to control, that Chattanooga will be very well positioned to take advantage of those things. We are, I mean, between us and Knoxville, it's a little bit of a toss-up about who the biggest small city is. But I think in both cases, these are metros that are incredibly important to Tennessee, incredibly important to the state's economy and competitiveness. And I'm sure the last thing the governor wants is to see us suffer unnecessarily, or for our governments to be unable to do the things that we need to do to help the private sector. So that's not a terribly satisfying answer for me to have to give, other than to say we do hope that the next round of stimulus funding will have a little bit more in there for cities like ours. Traditionally, those CDBG allocations go to cities of 50,000 people or more, which we obviously are. Again, I'm not quite sure why the larger population threshold pertains in this case, but it is a point of frustration and one that we worked as the bill was moving through the Senate to try to affect. We were not successful in doing that. We'll keep trying.
Yeah, and real quick, to that point, I think you will see some more dollars again in a fourth package. I know Speaker Pelosi has already said it's already sort of the wish list is already past $1 trillion. So whatever this next package looks like, it will have more money for states and local government. Another thing I want to note that's not in the CARES Act exactly, but in Governor Lee's budget, which will take effect July 1, he created a $200 million fund that would go directly to counties and cities. I believe Chattanooga and Hamilton County are roughly at about 7 million and change, I believe. It started as a $100 million infrastructure sort of road package that each county would get in the sort of truncated budget that they put together before they went into recess when this whole thing sort of really got serious. They added $100 million to it and sort of have allowed it to become a COVID-19 response fund of sorts. So there is some funding coming. It doesn't take, again, the budget doesn't take effect until July 1. And obviously, you know, there's a probably a larger need than $7 million for the city and county combined. But there is some state dollars that are out there as well to look forward to.
Okay, related question. As far as the stabilization fund is concerned, how are we defining small businesses? Is it an employee count?
Yeah, generally these are businesses that have 50 or fewer employees. Certainly biasing those that have a physical location, like a storefront or a neighborhood-based presence. I think the federal definition of a small business is 500 or less, which just doesn't make sense for a market our size. So 50 or less is where we're sort of targeting those category businesses that we think are the most vulnerable, add the most to a neighborhood's overall economic vitality and character. So that's the general definition that we're going for.
Okay, we'll do one last question here. There are a lot of businesses in the city that have been compounded or have seen the impact of COVID-19 compounded from the storms that just came through. Is there any word on FEMA or TEMA funding available to businesses at this point?
That is an excellent question. I don't have the answer to that right now, and I will be more than happy to share that with you and Justin and everyone as soon as we have a sense of what TEMA might be in a position to do. I know that I was getting copied in a lot of email traffic yesterday that the White House and FEMA are very aware of what has happened here. They of course are extremely aware of what we're already dealing with in terms of the coronavirus. But exactly what that's going to look like and dollar amounts and when things are going to start to be available, I just don't know yet. It's still too early days. I mean, we're still in the damage assessment phase, unfortunately. That tornado came through at a very inopportune time of day and relative to everything else that we're dealing with. So our public works crews and our police department, our fire department are moving with unbelievable speed. To try to make sure that they're doing everything they can to help people and make sure from a medical standpoint they're delivering the services they need to deliver. I know obviously the next wave, which will happen pretty quickly, is making sure they have a real parcel by parcel understanding of exactly what's happened. So what that's going to sort of look like in terms of recovery dollars and additional mitigation funds and other things that might start to be available from the feds in the state. I very much look forward to giving you those updates. I just don't have them right now.
Fair enough.
But, yeah.
Okay. I think we will cut it off there for now. If you guys have further questions, as usual, we will be posting a recording of this after the fact, along with the other live videos that we've done over the past few weeks. Feel free to go ask it in the comments there. Thank you again, Kerry, so much for being here. We appreciate all you and local government officials are doing. I know you guys have your hands full, to put it mildly, right now. So we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, well, it was my pleasure, and just can't say how grateful I am to the chamber and your membership. I know that what we're asking everyone to go through is just brutal. And I've been saying for weeks now that I feel like every day I'm having a conversation that would have seemed impossible or unthinkable or ridiculous just a couple days before. And everything that we're dealing with now as it relates to the tornado recovery has just sort of amplified that. So y'all's involvement and everything you do to make our city great is so appreciated and will be so important as we start to come out of this, and look forward to speaking with you again. Thanks.
Thanks, Kerry.
Okay.
Good to see you guys.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.